Hello and welcome back. Today's lesson, we're going to talk about population again. And we had done describing populations, and I just wanted to go over real briefly this last slide about sex ratios and monogamous species, meaning species that mate for life. It would be ideal if male and female were 50-50, half and half, right? So when they're not half and half, especially if there's less female and more male, that's when the population starts to dwindle. And we're going to go today into population growth and understanding this. So I had you look at the world population clock, and we're ticking away at 7.8 billion humans. The United States being the third largest population with something like 320 million. And humans, we are still at this exponential growth rate. It's still just climbing. Population biologists think that maybe 10 billion people will be what we reach, but we have to go and understand a little bit more about population. So today what I wanted to look at is this thing called a survivorship curve. I want to talk about immigration, emigration, and migration being this biological factor that humans are not exempt from. Then we're going to go over the rest of the list of these vocabulary words in another video. So today we're going to look at survivorship curves, immigration, emigration, and migration. So to understand a population, it's really good that we understand the kind of survivorship that they have. And mortality is death, natality is birth. And the survivorship shows how likely death will occur at different ages. So with type 1, you see type 1 here, humans. So we have age in relative units, and then we have number of survivors. And so humans, we have a higher mortality at an older age. Say that this wouldn't keep going because we're not living. So you can see here, the age in relative units starts going down in number of survivors as we get older. Then let's contrast that to type 3. Type 3 is going to not have a lot of babies make it out of that young age, but they're going to live relatively long. A few individuals are going to live long. This is in plants because they have a lot of seeds, create a lot of saplings, as in this tree. And then if that sapling makes it to a certain age, it is probably going to make it all the way to adulthood. Same thing with amphibians and organisms that have a lot of young. Amphibians, like a frog, will lay thousands of eggs, but only, in the tens will make it all the way to adulthood out of those thousands of eggs. And those eggs are food sources. They're supposed to be there. Acorns, because the tree drops so many, acorns are food sources for other animals. So it's part of the whole ecology that they do this. And then we have this type 2 survivorship curve where there's an equal amount of likelihood that they're going to die at any age. And that's a lot of bird species, right? So that's survivorship curve. It's going to tell you the likelihood of death at different ages. Now let's talk about immigration and emigration. Immigration is the arrival of a species to someplace. Emigration is the departure, and it has to be equal. If you have something arriving somewhere, you're going to have something departing from somewhere. But let's look at this migration. Migration is this biological factor that's very important. And it's usually seasonal, and it's in and out of area. We already talked about the migration, the 4 to 5 year migration of the passenger pigeon around North America, and how when they showed up, it was called the pigeon years, where they would show up these droves of millions, and they would provide food for that time, but then they'd leave. That's a migration. But most migrations are seasonal. Let's watch some animal migration on MoveBank. MoveBank is an organization. MoveBank is an organization that tracks the migration of a lot of different animals. And so here you have to know a little bit about geography here. We're over in Europe right now. You can see the boot of Italy, and I believe they're tracking the crane. And this crane was actually one of the first organisms. It was noticed in Germany by a young boy, and he was a farm boy, and he noticed this beautiful crane and how he doesn't see it all the time, and he actually took the train at age like 13 or 15 to the city. This is the wildebeest of Africa. This boy took the train at a young age to the city to get to the university to share his information with some professors there, and they figured out that this crane, you can see it's still migrating, does this huge migration. Water buffalo migrating again around Africa, and this is the track. They're tracking the African elephants. Now they're showing that crane going back in its season all the way back up through Africa, through the Middle East, through Europe, all the way back to Northern Europe, to the area in Germany where it was discovered there. So that's MoveBank. And you can go on movebank.org, just Google it. And when you come down here, you can see what their data is. So it's this database, and this is the crane that they were talking about that was, that makes that huge migration up into Europe and down into Africa. And you can click around and see how they do their tracking data. This is a true scientific website that scientists would actually use. All right, so let's see. You can play around with the types of sensors. I'm going to do birds because I'm interested in birds. And hit search bird rings and see. And let's see this one. There's one right here in United States. So egrets and herons. These are those great big water birds that kind of look like cranes. I just want to look at the movement data here. So we would see these in New Jersey coming through. These are those big white birds or those big gray birds that hang out in ponds and they fish with their beaks. So these animals are not the only thing that has ever migrated. Humans have migrated as well. Let's watch this 2-minute video together. So you can see the ice coming down from the ice cap, and that caused the ocean water to recede, opening up the Bering Strait from Russia to Alaska and allowing humans to walk across the Bering Strait. Bering Strait is now underwater at this time. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up this video I just made. I'm going to put the link to MoveBank at YouTube so you could look at some of their videos. I'll put the movebank.org link up, the video that we just watched. And I'm also going to put up this. It's a 47-minute podcast, but it talks about the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, and about migration and how, maybe we should rethink and allow people to cross borders, because what are borders? If we put, like, that was one of the problems when Donald Trump was trying to put up the wall between Mexico and the United States. It would have stopped the migration of a lot of different species. And that's their natural habitat, that Sonora Desert between Arizona and Mexico. They don't know that there's a border there of two different countries. So when we put up these blockades to migration, what effect does that have? And so what I'm going to do also is there's going to be a question up in Google Classroom that I want you to answer, and I want you to brainstorm different reasons for migration. All right, what is the purpose of migration? And that will have a due date on it, and you can answer and ask me any questions you need.